Hello fellow blenderers, today we are going to make the hand rig, as I said before in the previous tutorial, and we are going to do this using drivers and high K constraint for this part of the hand. So let's do this part before. Let's switch over edit mode and make a new bone, starting from the handheld bone. At this point we are going to separate this bone with Alt P and clear parent, and I am going to rename this to handheld control, and same thing for the right bone, hand R control. We are going to make a constraint of type inverse kinematic, and we are going to select the target. The target will be the hand L control, and the chain length will be 1, just 1, because we just want to move the hand. So this is working. We are just missing one single bone. We're going to select the handheld control, and we can duplicate this along the epsilon axis, and I'm going to move this by 3 units, and as you can see these two are aligned, and we are going to call this handheld pole. Same thing for the other side. That somehow didn't get copied. Okay, this was my mistake, because when you make a bone and you are working with the X mirror modifier, you actually want to have your R letter at the end of the name. For now we are good to go, because I am doing this by hand. Make sure you have your R and L letters at the end of your name. You now want to make a couple of parents, so we want to parent this bone, the pole bone, to the hand L control bone. So let's keep offset. And we then want to parent our hand L control to our forearm L control. This is pretty simple, so let's see. At this point we want to control all the hand movement using just this bone. Now the hand is keeping the default position, and we can rotate the forearm control to rotate the end, and we just now need to enable this pole, and we are going to be able to rotate the end on the other axis. Let's go into our constraint and enable the pole, hand L pole, and that's okay. And as you can see at this point, we can rotate the end in every direction that we want, and the hand is following pretty fine. Now we can control the end and the arm just using this single forearm L control. So this was pretty easy, guys. This is parented with this, and this is parented with this. So this bone is controlling the movement of these two. Let's make sure that we did the same on the right side. We can now test our controls. I am going to actually enable just my second layer, so I can easily select my controls, and we can test these and make some funny movements for our character. Okay, everything is working fine. And now we can move on and start to edit our fingers. But before I do that, I'm going to actually move these bones to the third layer. So we aren't going to see them, but now I'm going to switch to the third layer and disable the deformation for these bones. And I am also going to add another group, and this is going to be our proxy group, and I want this to be yellow and assign. These are just helper bones. We just need to use our controls to move all our body features. Let's move on to the finger part. For the fingers, I am actually going to duplicate these bones. The duplicate is going to work as a controller for our driver. So let's keep it simple, and I am going to do this just for the pinky finger, and then we are going to replicate the settings for the other fingers. Hide the other bones so we can focus on this single bone for now, and we can test our rig. So let's see, I actually want to see my axes. Let's enable them using our display state, and let's see the x-axis where it is positioned. So we want the bones to rotate around the x-axis because that's the way we do bend the finger, and this is fine. So we have discovered what axis we are going to use, and now we want to duplicate this bone. I want to scale this a bit so we can select this with no problems, and I'm going to add this bone to the control group, so we are going to see this better. And now we can switch to our driver screen. So let's click in this corner of the window and split this view, and right here we are going to need the drivers, and we can hit the N key on our keyboard, so we are going to be able to view our properties. Okay, so at this point we want to switch to the pause mode, and let me see if we can hide. Yes, and again I'm going to select these bones and hide the other bones so we can focus to this pinky finger. And now if you selected the tip of your finger bones, you can actually go to your bone properties in your transform, and if you move the X value, as you can see we are ending up with the transformation that we want. So we want the driver to influence this axis. Right mouse click, and we can add driver. We can do that also by pressing Ctrl D, and if you go right here in the driver window, you can select this X quaternion rotation, and you can go into the drivers, and we can start to tweak these values. So let's see, we are going to use a scripted expression, and as you can see right here we are using var +00 for the default value. We actually want to use that, but we are going to need a controlling object, and that object will be our new created bone. I'm going to name this control pinky.l. And so let's go back again and select our rig and our control pinky L. The value that we are going to need is the scale. So let's take a look at the axis again. So we want the epsilon scale. So let's select that, epsilon scale. I'm going to select local space. We have a value of 1, so the finger is rotating by 1. So let's select our expression field and change to var -1 to test this. And if we now scale our finger, this is working pretty fine, but this is doing the opposite of what we want. So I'm going to use my parentheses to invert the value, and now we can test this again, and this is working. So as you may know, in the expressions, what lies inside the parentheses is evaluated before the operator outside. So we are inverting with a minus this operation. So var, which is our epsilon scale, and this is the name of the variable. We can change this and we can use this in the expression. And so var -1, because the default value of our epsilon scale is 1, so we are subtracting that value. Now we can actually save and do the same for this pinky. The cool part of this process is that you can actually copy a driver. So let's do that. Let's go into our bone settings and select with our right mouse button and copy driver, and we are going to paste it on our pinky 0 to L, always in our X rotation. So paste, and same thing for the first part of the finger, so paste. And now we can actually test this, and as you can see, our finger is bending pretty well. This process is working, so we are going to hit Alt H to enable again all the bones. Now we can do the same process for all our other fingers. So I'm going to switch to edit mode, duplicate these bones and scale them using our individual origins. So let's scale them a bit. Now we can actually change the names of it. And at this point we can go on and apply our drivers to the other fingers. So let's do that, and let's select all our controls also for the right side. so we can move them on the proper bone group and also the proper layer. So second layer and controls bone group, and now we can work on the left hand. I am going to do this finger at normal speed, and then I am going to time lapse the other fingers because this is all the same. So let's go ahead. I am actually going to copy and paste this first driver that we did. So copy and paste, but we want to fix this because we actually have this controller and we want this controller to affect this rotation, so we just need to select the bone. Okay, now this is working, and now we can actually copy this driver and paste it to the other bones, and let's test this. Okay, this is working. Now we can just select the controls and move these two fingers. We just need to do the same thing for the other bones. So I am going to time lapse this portion of the video. I don't want to bore you to death, so let's go ahead. In the end, I am also going to make these bone transformations, this bone rotation, affect the finger rotation, so we're going to be able to have that type of control of the finger too, because we want to position all the fingers in the proper way. So I'm going to do the same thing for the other side. If you end up with a driver that doesn't work or doesn't update, don't freak out, just update dependencies, okay? That's the way to go. I am done with the right hand, and let's test this, and this is working pretty fine. So now we can move on and add a rotation control to our base finger bone. So when we rotate this bone, also our finger will rotate. So let's do that. Let's select our base finger bone. We can now actually close the driver window and we can focus on this part. For to do that, we need to go into our bone constraints, and we can then add a copy rotation, and I'm going to select my thumb, Control L with a influence of 1, and we can now test this. And as you can see, we are now able to use our control to rotate our finger, and if we scale the control up and down, we can actually close and open our finger. So this isn't bad, and this is working. If you end up with messed bone transformation and you don't want to match your starting position starting from scratch, you just need to press Alt and S to reset scale and Alt R to reset rotation. And we are good to go. We can do the same stuff for the other fingers. And as you may think, you can also add a lot of controls to our hand. We can also add a control that open the fingers and close all the fingers at once by making another bone and drive the finger opening by using the scale of this bone. At this point you can do what you want with the drivers and make all the controls that suits your needs. And I'm going to apply the rotation of the control to the other fingers. Cross fingers and everything is going to be working pretty fine. At this point I'm going to reset my rotation and my scale of these control bones, and as you can see we are able to transform some bones. So we actually want to disable, or to call it the proper way, locking some transformations. So let's select all our finger controls and let's go into our bone settings, and we actually want to be sure that we lock all the location transformation. So let's hit Alt and enable that. This way we are going to be able just to rotate the bones and we cannot move them in space. So by pressing G you are actually rotating, and we can also scale the bone. For this control, for example, we have all the settings enabled, so we can move and rotate, but everything else is working fine as it is. And I'm going to do the same for the right hand. At this point we have a hand rig that works very well, and we are pretty much done with our arm rig. So let's test this out by positioning the hand in some cool place, and let's enable just our control layer so we don't get distracted with all the other bones. And let's see. Now we can animate this pretty quickly, so this worked pretty well. And now guys, you are going to be able to make your own rig for the arm, and you can reset all the bones by selecting everything in pose mode and hitting Alt S for scale, G for position and R for rotation, and you are going to be at a starting point. Okay, now we are done with our arm rig. We can move on and rig our first leg. Then we are going to move on and rig our back, our body, and then our head. For this tutorial will be all. I hope you liked it, and we see in the next tutorial. Bye guys!